You want a broadcaster that inspires you. DWTV, quality first. Our program for the festive season. The scent of Stollen and Christmas music from Dresden's Striezelmarkt. Yuletide Mission, all the right ingredients for the holiday period. And something to brighten up the darker days. Art and light. Christmas time on DWTV.
We're standing by Afghanistan. That was the message from the international community on Monday at a major conference in the German city of Bonn. Western leaders promised more support beyond the planned withdrawal of combat troops in 2014.
This will be a civilian commitment, but we will also continue to play our part in matters like training soldiers and police.
Kabul said it will need billions of dollars in aid every year right through 2024 and promised to fight corruption.
We will work to fight corruption more effectively and further reform government institutions to render them more efficient, transparent and accountable.
But the absence of Afghanistan's most important neighbor, Pakistan, cast a shadow over the conference. And on Tuesday, a huge attack in Kabul underscored tensions between the two countries. At least 55 people were killed in a bombing at a Shiite shrine. Kabul said a Pakistani militant group was to blame.
It was a big week for Germany's main opposition party, the Social Democrats, who held their annual conference in Berlin. They want to return to power at the next elections in 2013. With the euro crisis still rumbling on, former Finance Minister Per Steinbrück set his sights on the financial sector.
If we have to prop up the banks again so the dominoes don't start falling, then only on condition of comprehensive regulation and supervision of the financial markets.
One big question remains for the SPD as they prepare for the 2013 elections. Who should be their candidate for Chancellor? Three men are squaring off: Per Steinbrück, party leader Sigmar Gabriel and former Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier. But a decision on that won't come until the end of next year.
At the Durban climate talks, the UN Secretary-General warned that a legally binding agreement might not be reached.
The ultimate goal of comprehensive and binding climate change agreement may be beyond our reach for now.
The conference ended on Saturday with last-minute agreement on a roadmap to slow the pace of global warming, but no binding targets to succeed the Kyoto Protocol, which ends in 2012.
A handover off the Horn of Africa. On Tuesday, Germany passed command of the EU's anti-piracy mission to Spain. Defense Minister Thomas de Maizière said making the world's most dangerous waters safe would take much more than naval forces.
Fighting the infrastructure of piracy, prosecuting those responsible and finding those behind the scenes, confiscating money. These are all things the Navy cannot do.
De Maizière said piracy in the region will only come to an end when the political situation in war-torn Somalia is stabilized. And that could be a very long way off.
Could this be the twin of the planet Earth? That's the question posed by NASA on Tuesday as it announced the discovery of Kepler-22b. This planet orbits a star about 600 light-years away. NASA says it could host some kind of life at a temperature of about 22 degrees.
On US TV this week, Syria's president denied responsibility for the violence in his country.
We don't kill our people. Nobody kill, no government in the world kill its people unless it's led by a crazy person. For me as president, I became president because of the public support. It's impossible for anyone in this state to give order to kill.
But the images from Syria tell a different story. The UN says more than 4,000 people have been killed since the uprising against the Assad regime began in March.
He once held the highest public office in Israel. Moshe Katsav now faces 7 years in jail. He began his sentence for rape and sexual harassment on Wednesday, still protesting his innocence.
The state of Israel is condemning a man today on the basis of impressions, without real-time testimony, without evidence.
But Israel's Supreme Court disagreed, voting unanimously to uphold Katsav's conviction. The charges: he raped his former secretary, who was seen here in file footage, and sexually harassed 2 other women.
A change of the guard at the top of German soccer. On Wednesday, DFB President Theo Zwanziger presented his successor, current General Secretary Wolfgang Niersbach. Niersbach must be endorsed by the General Assembly next October, but his confirmation is seen as a formality. A 61-year-old former sports journalist, he is seen as a safe pair of hands.
It was a week of protests in Russia. Opposition activists took to the streets day after day, angry at elections last weekend that they say were rigged.
As long as Vladimir Putin is in power with his party of crooks and thieves, the Russian people have no chance of free elections. He's a cynical, awful man who wants power for life.
International observers confirmed there were far too many irregularities, including outright ballot stuffing. Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin accused the U.S. of stoking the protests.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton assessed the elections as dishonest and unfair, even though she hadn't even received the proper observers' reports. Her statement sent a signal to some people in our country, and they responded with support from the U.S. State Department.
Protests against the election results continued throughout the week. Thousands came out in several cities across Russia, including St. Petersburg. As many as 100,000 demonstrators took to the streets of the capital, Moscow, on Saturday, the biggest demonstration in the country for more than a decade.
And there were more signs of tensions between Russia and the West at a NATO meeting in Brussels. Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said the talks failed to reach a deal over NATO's plans for a missile shield in Europe. Moscow says the system could undermine its strategic defense and is threatening to deploy missiles in its Kaliningrad region. But both sides agreed to keep working on a possible agreement.
Another week, another summit to save the euro. But this time, it was a country outside the euro that was in the spotlight, Britain. It refused to sign up to treaty changes on fiscal stability. And it could turn out to be the only country to do so.
We will not be presenting this new treaty, when it's agreed, to our Parliament. It will not involve Britain.
That has left some worried about a two-speed Europe. But Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel said London made demands its partners couldn't meet.
Britain said very clearly that if there are treaty changes, then it wants treaty changes that serve its purposes. We couldn't go along with that condition.
What remains is a major deal between the 17 Eurozone members and up to 9 other countries, with strict rules on budget deficits and automatic sanctions against countries that break the rules. ECB chief Mario Draghi welcomed the plan.
It's a very good outcome for the euro area, very good. And certainly it's going to be helpful in the present situation.
And what were the challenges?
Now all eyes are on Draghi himself and whether he steps up the ECB's crisis measures in response to the New Deal. Despite all the economic turmoil, membership in the EU is still an attractive prospect for countries. On Friday, Croatia's President Ivo Josipovic signed an accession treaty with the Union, paving the way for the ex-Yugoslav state to become the EU's 28th member in 2013. And that concludes our review of the week's news.